The scorching African sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty road that cut through Mkomazi National Park in Tanzania. Rangers Joseph and Emmanuel had been patrolling this route for over a decade, but nothing could have prepared them for the scene that would unfold on this sweltering Tuesday afternoon. It started with a sound that made their blood run cold. The desperate, high-pitched wails of a lion cub in distress. The two rangers immediately stopped their jeep, grabbing their equipment as they rushed toward the source of the heart-wrenching cries. What they discovered would haunt them for the rest of their lives. There, in the middle of the narrow dirt road, a massive African rock python had coiled itself around a golden lion cub no more than 6 months old. The serpent's powerful muscles constricted with deadly precision, each squeeze driving the life from the helpless creature. The cub's amber eyes were wide with terror, its small paws frantically clawing at the air as it fought against an enemy it could never hope to defeat. "Dear God," whispered Emmanuel, his voice trembling as he witnessed the python's methodical execution. The snake was easily 15 feet long, its diamond-patterned scales glistening in the harsh sunlight. This was no ordinary predator-prey encounter. This was a calculated ambush that had caught the curious cub wandering too far from its pride. Joseph's hands shook as he reached for his equipment. Both rangers knew that pythons killed by constriction, tightening their grip every time their victim exhaled until the prey could no longer draw breath. Time was running out, and fast. The cub's struggles were already growing weaker, its desperate bleats fading to barely audible whimpers. "We have to do something now," Joseph shouted, raising his long wooden staff. But as he prepared to strike, Emmanuel grabbed his arm with iron-like strength. "Wait!" Emmanuel hissed, his eyes fixed on something behind the python. "Look!" Emerging from the dense acacia forest like a creature from ancient nightmares came a silverback gorilla unlike anything either ranger had ever seen. This was no ordinary mountain gorilla. This magnificent beast stood nearly 7 feet tall and weighed at least 400 pounds of pure muscle and fury. His silver-streaked back caught the sunlight as he moved with surprising stealth for such a massive creature. The gorilla's name was Jengo, though the rangers didn't know it. He had been the undisputed king of his territory for over 15 years, a gentle giant who rarely showed aggression except when protecting his family. But something about the cub's cries had awakened something primal within him. Perhaps memories of his own offspring, or simply an innate sense of justice that transcended species. As Jengo approached the horrific scene, his intelligent dark eyes assessed the situation with the calculating precision of a military strategist. The python, completely focused on its struggling prey, remained oblivious to the approaching danger. This would be its fatal mistake. The two rangers watched in stunned silence as Jengo moved closer, his massive knuckles barely making a sound on the hard-packed earth. Every muscle in his enormous frame was coiled like a spring, ready to unleash devastation. His lip curled back, revealing canine teeth that could crush bones like twigs. Then, without warning, Jengo struck with the force of a freight train. The silverback's massive fist connected with the python's head with a sickening crunch that echoed through the forest like a gunshot. The serpent's body immediately went rigid, its grip on the lion cub loosening as its nervous system short-circuited from the devastating blow. But Jengo wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. With terrifying efficiency, the gorilla grabbed the python's writhing body and began to systematically destroy it. His powerful hands, each capable of exerting over 300 pounds of pressure per square inch, crushed vertebrae like they were made of paper. The snake's attempts to coil around its attacker were futile. Jengo's thick fur and incredible strength made him virtually immune to the python's desperate counterattacks. "Incredible," breathed Joseph, unable to look away from the brutal spectacle. "I've never seen anything like this." The gorilla's display of protective fury was both beautiful and terrifying to behold. This wasn't mindless violence. This was justice being served by nature's own hand. Every crushing blow, every broken bone was delivered with surgical precision. Jengo's face remained eerily calm throughout the assault, his dark eyes focused and determined. Within minutes, the python lay motionless on the dusty road, its threat permanently eliminated. But what happened next left both rangers speechless. Jengo gently approached the freed lion cub, who lay gasping and trembling on the ground. The tiny predator, despite its fear, seemed to recognize that this massive creature had saved its life. With movements so tender they seemed impossible for hands that had just dealt death, Jengo carefully examined the cub for injuries. The gorilla's massive fingers, surprisingly gentle, checked for broken ribs and internal damage. Finding none, he carefully lifted the small lion and carried it to the shade of a nearby baobab tree. There he sat vigil beside the recovering cub, his presence a protective barrier against any other threats. Emmanuel found his voice first. In 20 years of wildlife conservation, I've never witnessed anything remotely like this. It's as if that gorilla understood exactly what needed to be done. The lion cub, though shaken, began to recover its strength under Jengo's watchful protection. Within an hour, the sound of approaching roars indicated that the cub's pride had finally tracked down their missing member. A lioness, presumably the cub's mother, emerged from the brush with 3 other adult lions. What followed defied every law of nature that the rangers thought they understood. Instead of viewing Jengo as a threat, the lions seemed to recognize him as their cub's savior. The mother lioness approached the gorilla slowly, her head lowered in what could only be described as gratitude. She gently retrieved her offspring, nuzzling it with relief before turning back to Jengo with what appeared to be a respectful nod. As the pride disappeared back into the bush with their rescued family member, Jengo remained seated beneath the baobab tree. He watched until the lions were completely out of sight, then slowly rose to his full, imposing height. Before departing, he turned toward the rangers and fixed them with a stare that seemed to communicate volumes about respect, protection, and the unwritten laws that govern the wild. Joseph and Emmanuel stood in reverent silence as the magnificent silverback disappeared back into the forest, leaving behind only the carcass of the python and a story that would be told around campfires for generations. "Justice," Emmanuel finally whispered, breaking the sacred silence. "That's what we just witnessed. Pure natural justice." The rangers carefully removed the python's remains from the road, but the memory of that afternoon would stay with them forever. They had witnessed something beyond the normal cycle of predator and prey. They had seen compassion transcend species, strength protect innocence, and good triumph over evil in the most primal way possible. News of the rescue spread throughout the conservation community, though many found the story difficult to believe. How could a gorilla, normally vegetarian and peaceful, display such protective instincts toward a lion cub? How could natural enemies recognize heroism and show gratitude? But Joseph and Emmanuel knew what they had seen. In a world where cruelty often seems to triumph, they had witnessed proof that justice exists even in the wild places of the earth. The python's death wasn't merely the end of a predator. It was the victory of protection over exploitation, of courage over cowardice. The python's aggression had been met with overwhelming force, its cruelty answered with swift justice. In the end, the natural order had been restored not by the strongest predator, but by the most compassionate protector. If this incredible story of natural justice and unlikely heroism moved you as much as it moved us, please give this story a like and subscribe for more amazing wildlife encounters that will restore your faith in the power of good over evil.